Happy anniversary! 100 years ago, on August 18, 1920, Tennessee became the final state to ratify the 19th Amendment. After over a 70-year fight, women won the vote. Unlike what the history books might tell us, women were not granted or given the vote. Instead, passage came only after a bitter struggle, a political and social battle over the role of women. The end was in doubt until the last minute when one House member changed his vote due to a letter from his mother. As important as the lesson is that one vote can make the difference, the story of what women did to win the vote has as much relevance today to you as women of influence as it did 100 years ago. When Tennessee became the last best hope to get the vote, suffragists had hoped to avoid Tennessee in the South and the forces against them. In a segregated society, these forces didn't want African American women to vote. And because of that deep-seated fear, both the anti-suffragists and suffragists engaged in tactics which promoted white supremacy. Forces thought women were lesser beings than men, and also believed their religion didn't allow women to conduct activities outside the home. Forces feared the doubling of unpredictable voters. In particular, corporate interests such as manufacturers, the liquor lobby, and the railroads, embedded with decades of established relationships, were fearful that women might try to improve working conditions, such as child labor laws, and hurt their profits. By publicly standing up for social and political equality, suffragists bravely endured contempt and ridicule in their communities, churches, and the media. Women were supposed to stay at home and not speak in public, much less participate in marches or carry signs. They were attacked by mobs of angry men and denounced as radicals, perverts, traitors, and socialists. They were derided as unattractive, unsexed people who were bad wives and mothers, while anti-suffragists were portrayed as attractive, feminine saints. Men who supported or participated in the movement were belittled as men with frail character and weak masculinity, sometimes depicted as holding screaming babies as the women walked out the door to go vote. Sexism was a fundamental obstacle in America, and the suffragists were fighting for more than just the right to vote. Suffragists had to change the hearts and minds about a woman's role in society for decades before they could change the Constitution. The suffragists stood up and fought when they didn't know how it was going to turn out or if it would be okay. They were, frankly, amazing, powerful, and influential leaders. They were individuals with different strengths and weaknesses and different viewpoints, but together they became women of influence. And as I look back at their courage, I realized that a suffragist was a woman who overcame her fears, believed in her cause, and acted. And thus, she gave herself power. As we approach this centennial, I've been around for about 2/3 of this past century. When I was in high school, our social and political culture was such that there was no notion of women of influence. My options as a college-bound white woman were in this preferred order. 1, be a married woman with children and rely on my husband for support. 2, work as a teacher, secretary, or nurse, and then quit when I married. Or 3, if I did not get married, I had that job to fall back on. As I graduated from high school, I read The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, and she told me that many women weren't happy in these roles and to consider why. I did and went to law school. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was searching for something more, which is still often the case with me. In going to law school after living through the political upheaval of the civil rights, anti-war, and the second wave of feminism movements, I knew I wanted to have some power. Not power or control over others, instead, power to make change. I also wanted to have control of my life choices and empower others, particularly women. I now know, although not a word I used then, I wanted to have influence. But women who wanted to be women of influence would not say that then, and it is even difficult for us to say that now. Women's influence has changed since I went to college, but some things have not. I am struck by how powerful women are, but how many of us hesitate to exercise it and own up to it. I'd like to take a look at some areas in which we have power that we did not have in 1920. First, we vote. In the nation as a whole, women make up a majority of the voters. In Tennessee, 54% of the voters are women. This is a sizable majority, an 8-point spread. In Nashville, the point spread is even greater at 14%, for women in 2018 were approximately 57% of the registered voters. This point spread is never really discussed in the national media, but those running for office know it. Close to half, 14 of 30 judges in Nashville are women. As a result of our 2019 elections, Nashville elected women to 1/2 of the 40 council positions. However, disappointingly, in the Tennessee state legislature, only about 16% of our representatives are women. Tennessee elected Marsha Blackburn as its first woman U.S. Senator in 2018, and along with her, our nation's congressional midterm elections made history, for women make up almost 25% of the voting membership. As with 2018, we are on track to have another record number of women running in 2020. The point is this: women are not the minority. We are the majority voters. If we want more power, we can get it. We have to be cognizant, however, that there are still barriers to overcome, and as in so many areas, we will have to work harder to get there. But as the suffragists taught us, the fight is worth the gain. Unlike 1920, we are more educated. In the 70s, men went to college in proportions far higher than women, 58 to 42%. Now, the ratio has almost exactly reversed. As a frame of reference, since the mid-90s, more women than men have obtained college degrees. Young women are driving the change. In the 25 to 34 age group, 37.5% of women versus 29.5% of men have a bachelor's degree or higher, with gains in occupations traditionally dominated by men. But women still haven't reached a state of parity in the workforce. When women get out of college, they face a cultural norm in which they earn unequal pay. In general, women workers make 78% of what men earn, and the gender pay gap is greater among women of color. So, we are more educated overall, but still underpaid. Just as with the vote, we are in the majority. We need effective action for equal pay, not just supportive words. Finally, unlike 1920, we are more influential. Today, we are attending a virtual meeting of Women of Influence, sponsored by the Nashville Business Journal, the president and publisher of which is Lori Becker. Like the Journal, most of our Nashville major media outlets are run by women. You have earned this distinction as a woman of influence at an important time in our history. What is your role in this time of a pandemic, persistent gender inequality, and so many other issues of equality and justice facing us? Surely, you like me have no idea quite what you are doing, but you are searching for something more. I mentioned I went to law school because I wanted to make change. I've always loved the Margaret Mead quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Look at the outpouring of admiration and respect for the national women's soccer team, the 2019 World Cup champion. The entire team filed a lawsuit claiming gender discrimination before the World Cup. This small group of thoughtful, committed citizens, with this lawsuit pending and the pressure to win with the whole world watching, captured our hearts and minds, just like the suffragists had to do, with their excellence as players, their hard work to get there, their fight for gender equality in sports, and their public statement that no member of that team should be stopped by stereotypes and long-held social beliefs about the place of women in our society. Now more than ever in my past 2/3 of a century, I sense a tidal wave of goodwill among women, a sisterhood that encourages us to go for it and succeed. There are a lot of thoughtful, committed women in Nashville who have the know-how and relationships to influence others and make change. There is a strong solidarity among us. With our solidarity, older women understand what younger women face. All generations desire change. Of course, women don't all think alike, nor do we speak or should we speak with one voice or viewpoint. However, we are all participating in a grand movement where there is no timetable, best practices, or clear path. Think of all we could accomplish if the women at this event understood their power and did what they could do to make the change they want to see. I ask you, do you know your power? Are you comfortable with it? Do you hesitate to use power like I have felt at times because you might not look right, whatever that might mean? Or are you, or would you like to be, more like the suffragists? Do you trust your power? Do you know you'll be okay getting out there, in front, and doing what you are pulled to do, no matter if you don't know how it will turn out? I'd like to close quoting the poet Adrienne Rich. Today's women, born yesterday, dealing with tomorrow. Not yet where we're going, but not still where we were. Thanks to the suffragists, we are not where we were. Like the suffragists, we don't know yet where we're going. But as women of influence, with your power, you will lead the way. Thank you.